Here with us now is Democratic Congressman Adam Smith. He is the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, and he warned Zelensky on NewsNation days ago against going to Moscow to meet with Putin. Congressman, welcome back.
It's good to be back. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So given the current state of relations between Putin and Zelensky, we heard Robert's report about yet another drone strike. Do you see an end to the war in the near future? What will it take to finally get there?
Well, I think your reporter hit the nail on the head when he said we need to put more pressure on Russia. In the short term, I think probably not. But if we stay united, there's a 53-nation coalition that works with Ukraine and is helping defend Ukraine. If we stay united and if we put pressure on Russia and Putin, I think that can force Putin to a legitimate peace negotiation. Russia is not in great shape. They are taking appalling casualties. They have stopped really making progress in terms of taking territory in Ukraine. Ukraine has done attacks on Russia's energy infrastructure that have led to gas shortages within Russia. Their economy is weakening as inflation is going up and their debt and deficit are skyrocketing. So there is pressure on Russia. And if President Trump could finally clearly say that we are going to stand with Ukraine and increase pressure on Russia, I think that can force Russia to the bargaining table. The problem is, go ahead, sorry.
When you say increased pressure, are you talking about sanctions?
Well, I'm talking, yes, sanctions, but also just make it clear that we're standing with Ukraine. When Putin came to Alaska and Trump literally rolled out the red carpet for him and didn't say one critical word about what Putin was doing, when at the start of his administration, he chose instead to criticize Zelensky and Ukraine and to buy into Russian talking points, let's be clear, Ukraine does not threaten Russia, never has. Russia threatens Ukraine. So if we can offer clarity on where we stand, that would help put pressure on Russia.
Yeah, especially because nothing fruitful came out of the Alaska summit. I want to move on to the Israel-Hamas war. Just on Friday, President Trump signed an executive order that penalizes countries that wrongfully imprison Americans. After the signing, he talked about the hostages still being held by Hamas. Here's what he said.
We're in very deep negotiation with Hamas. We said, let them all out right now, let them all out, and much better things will happen for them. But if you don't let them all out, it's going to be a tough situation. It's going to be nasty. It's 20 people, but I think of the 20, there could be some that have recently died, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, a lot of people taking note of him saying at least 20 people may have recently died. If that is true, if that statement is true, what does this mean for a potential ceasefire?
Look, the hostages are the main problem here. And a long time ago, if Hamas had released them, the war would have easily come to an end. We don't know where the hostages are at right now. We don't know what the condition is, but it is a central part of the problem. I do think that Israel would be better off now doing a ceasefire, getting humanitarian aid in. 6 months of war, the last ceasefire ended in March. 6 months of war have done nothing to get closer to bringing the hostages home. So I think this is a very complicated situation. I think Israel needs to look at this and understand that militarily, they've achieved pretty much all they can against Hamas. The key now is to build an alternative to Hamas from within the Palestinian people. And you can't do that in a perpetual state of war.
A moment ago, you and I were talking about the images we saw come out of the Alaska summit. I do want to talk about the other summit we saw in the last few days that included Putin, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un. They gathered in Beijing for a military parade. The leaders, they stood together for the first time since the Cold War. That relationship seemed cozy. They were holding hands. They were hugging. On Wednesday, Senator Mitch McConnell said in an interview, as all of that was unfolding and we were watching what was coming out of Beijing, he said this: I think this is the most dangerous period since before World War II. Congressman, your reaction to that?
No, I think he's probably right. Look, Trump is pushing all of our allies away. I mean, he is making us weaker as a nation by basically picking petty fights with well over 100 different countries. In the world we live in today, we need partners and allies. The United States is not simply going to dominate the world because Donald Trump says it should. We need partners, we need allies, and he is busily pushing them all away, number one. Number two, Mitch McConnell's right, because we have seen something we haven't seen in a very long time. Our adversaries actually working together, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and now, because Trump slapped 50% tariffs on India for no particularly good reason, he has pushed India into their arms. He slapped a 50% tariff on Brazil because he, again, for no good reason, because he's upset about what they're doing to Bolsonaro, as if that's got anything to do with us. He's pushing all of these countries together at a time when we face really significant challenges and threats from China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. We need allies and partners, and Trump is ruling the country as his own sort of personal fiefdom instead of looking at the best interests of everybody in the United States of America. And it is a very dangerous time.
I'm glad you mentioned India because Prime Minister Modi was there as well. On Saturday, I spoke to your fellow Congressman Scott Perry. Here's what he said about the relationship between these three leaders.
I think all of these leaders have probably read Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And in The Art of War, it says, when you're weak, project strength. And I think that's what all of them are doing. I mean, for goodness sake, Russia can't even handle a war in the little tiny country of Ukraine right on its border. So that having been said, my biggest concern is that they do something rash in defense of themselves because they are weak, and they do something that is going to be irreversible. So we have to be really careful to make sure that they're not pushed to the limit, but that we restrain their aggression on every account.
Congressman, if I can get a quick reaction from you.
Yeah, I don't think describing China as weak is remotely accurate. They're the second largest economy in the world. They have a military. North Korea has nuclear weapons. I mean, that may be comforting to think that our adversaries are simply weak, but they are busily coordinating to try to counter the power of the U.S. and our allies, and they're bringing in more and more countries. I think we need to take seriously the threat that this presents and actually start trying to build the coalitions and alliances necessary to counter that threat.
Congressman Smith, we always appreciate you making time for our show. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you again.
You as well. Thanks.